And when I got into church, the gender roles that they preached about were probably the toughest thing for me to swallow very early on. It was very obvious walking into those doors that the women dressed and looked different. It's not like it has to be shoved in your face constantly, like by preaching, because you look around and 95% of the women are dressed exactly the same and have hair at least to their waist. It's pretty obvious that, you know, there's a reason for that. And I remember the first time walking into that church in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans from school being like, I feel awkward. So it was a strange thing for me. And I remember I started wearing skirts to church really quickly just because I wanted to fit in, but I didn't make the leap to the dress code very quickly. It was something I wanted to give some time to think about. And also I was living in a household where my mom was a beautician, and I knew that would, not wanting to cut my hair anymore, would cause some conflict, so that was a little awkward. At the United Pentecostal Church, not all Pentecostal churches, please don't think that all Pentecostal churches teach this, because it's really, there's other religions that teach it, but among the Pentecostals, the United Pentecostals are the only ones that I know of that teach this sort of thing. But when it comes to at least standards, how you dress, at least, they teach you should wear skirts or dresses, women, and men should wear pants. No exceptions, really. So I wore pants for a long time after I started going to church, because that was honestly, that's what I was most comfortable in. You wouldn't catch me dead in a skirt before going to church. And my hair was about this length when I got in church, maybe a little shorter than this. And I remember starting to grow it out. By the time I decided to not cut it, it was about this length. And I heard this preaching a lot about being modest in your dress, which was never a huge issue for me. I was never really like, hey, look at me anyway. Not wearing makeup wasn't a problem. I never wore makeup before. But when it came to getting rid of the pants and deciding not to cut my hair at all, I was low maintenance girl. So this was a challenge for me. But over time, of course, I started to agree with them more and more and understand the reasoning. Believe that I understood the reasoning, and the more they preached about the more I'm like, you know, you're right, God created men and women different. We are different, you know, we should be proud of that and express that, and things like that. So I did change over time. I did start wearing skirts all the time, or dresses, and I did start growing out my hair right when I got into college, my freshman year of college. That's when I went away from home. I didn't have to deal with the pressure of my parents as much. At least for my mom, and that's when I decided, you know, I'm gonna do this because I want to. That was my thing. I want to honor God. I want to show that I'm proud to be female. I want to honor the scriptures, because at the time, the scriptures that I was presented with, that's how I thought the best way to do so was. And I was hardcore. I wore skirts all winter long. I mean, I never made an exception except pajama pants if I was like around girls. But I was very strict on myself. I mean, I went sledding in a skirt. I would wear pants underneath the skirt. But I did not. Once I decided to do it, I was going to do it. I was not going to be a hypocrite. I was not going to follow it just at church and then leave and then not do it. That was how I felt. If I was going to do it, I was going to commit. And if I didn't want to do it anymore, then I wouldn't do it anymore. I wore nothing but skirts for about 4 years. And I took that very seriously, and I never thought it was a heaven or hell thing. I looked at it as a way of serving God at the time, and I looked at it as a way of embracing my role. The two biggest downsides of really dressing the way I dressed, besides my hair being a constant mess, trying to get it to not be crazy tangly, because it always was the fact that people snap judge me, and it really made me feel different. Even though on the inside I didn't always feel that different, I didn't feel like I was part of what they called the world. And I think that they encourage you to not be part of the world. That's kind of their term for, you know, people who aren't in church. You know, you don't dress like the world, you don't act like the world. You are to set yourself apart. And that did make me feel apart, you know. It made me feel different a lot. And I usually didn't think of it But you know, when you're dressing a certain way and people start pegging you a certain way, it does make you feel separate from the rest of your peers. It does make you feel like you don't belong the same, which really fosters a connection with the people around you at church, because you feel more comfortable when you come to church and everybody's dressed like you. It's that group mentality, and when everybody thinks like you and dresses like you, there's a comfort in that. And along with the visual standards, which were the most memorable and the most noticeable, they also had the sort of men and women should have roles in the household in their lives. Now, they had very, very distinct ideas of what was male and what was female. And the blurring of the gender roles was very preached against. The blurring, you know, women are trying to be men was something that I remember that was said quite a bit. Women are trying to be men, they're trying to, you know, dress like men and act like men and be men, and, you know, that's an abomination to God. That was something that was really talked against, and it was also the man is the head of the household. That was a big thing. A woman needs to submit to her husband. And women were not allowed to preach in the church. They were allowed to maybe tell testimonies. Obviously they were allowed to teach like Sunday school and things, but I think they got around this. They said that, you know, women aren't supposed to teach man, but, you know, those are boys, so they're allowed to teach the young boys. And me being a vocal person, this was a little difficult, because I was never an abrasive person. I was never like in your face, but I have opinions and I have ideas and I like to talk. So I always felt a little out of place in this regard. So this was something that was challenging to me, because I really felt like I had a lot to say, especially after a few years after I felt like my my spiritual life had grown. I felt like I had things to say. I felt like I could be a good witness. I felt I had a kind of a gift to be able to talk and understand people, and I really had that desire to kind of get up and talk. I mean, I felt in some odd ways like that's what I was supposed to do, and that was probably one of the more difficult things about what they taught, is, you know, I saw guys my age getting behind the pulpit, and I wanted to, but I tried to say, well, that was wrong. There was other ways that I could spread the gospel, that I could share my faith, because I cared about that. I thought that was very important, and I found other ways to do so, witnessing, you know, things like that. I prayed hard to become the kind of female that God wanted me to be, and this was a constant struggle for me. Externally, it was a lot easier than what I felt like I had to struggle with internally, because I was being told that who I was as a female was a bit too masculine, I guess. At least that's how I felt. It's not like someone came up to me and said that, but the kind of preaching, you know, the kind of gentle, meek-spirited woman. I really strive to be more of that, and that was really a tough thing for me